Right, Tim. So in a recent interview, you mentioned various generative AI models. I was wondering if you could maybe suggest a couple of generative AI models that would be impactful at telco.
I think the first thing to say is, the obvious ones are probably, OpenAI, GPT, Claude, etc., Anthropic. But quite recently, we've seen DeepSeek come into the market. And if you're asking me what's going to be the most transformative, I think that is going to have very widespread impacts on the market because it's open source, it's very, very cheap. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that everybody jumps onto DeepSeek, but it will be very interesting to see how OpenAI react to that and change their product accordingly. Whether it means that we will be able to use generative AI much more cheaply in the coming months, I don't know, but it'll be fascinating to see. But if you ask me, actually going slightly beyond the just generative AI, if you ask me what are the most transformative or exciting technologies in the telco space, I would start to look at the voice chatbots area, whereas up to now they've tended to be really quite intent driven and driving a customer down a sort of decision tree. We are starting to see some really, really good natural language chatbots coming out. So there's two I would point you towards. One is a US based one called bland.ai. That's quite exceptional. I would go so far as to say it's almost impossible to know that you're speaking to a computer. And another one is a completely new startup in the UK, which is just finding its feet, called CloudAx. So if you look at cloudax.uk, I think they're one to watch as well. And both of these solutions have really, really good natural voice interactions. But I think what we need to see is how well they can integrate with backend systems and processes, because you need that in order to get value from them in a telco environment. So that remains to be seen. But that's what I'm really excited about at the moment.
Awesome. Dr. Basit, I know you've got something to say here.
It's a very interesting question. The answer to this really highlights the challenges and the path that telcos are taking. I remember in some of the other workshops or sessions I've done where we talked about telco business model and how can telcos actually change their business model. And we actually don't necessarily see a major transformation in the business model. And we can understand that they have a heavy infrastructure providing connectivity. And that's essentially their business model. How are you going to transform that? And so no matter what you do with technology, they're going to have to sit in this space. And so it's very, very obvious that with the GenAI models that they're going to adopt are really where it's customer facing, because that's where you can translate any technology straight back into ROI. So we all know the customer facing ones, just the ones that I've worked on with my clients. The initial adoption of intelligent automation was making life easier for the customer agent in terms of having to access more than one system. Then there's the use of AI to actually match the customer to the customer agent. And now it's very clear that it's going to be the use of GenAI to take all those simple use cases and automate them with agentic solutions and still leave the complicated ones to the human agents. So I expect that to occur where you see a greater use of GenAI to pass conversations. Simple ones are done by agentic, complicated by human beings. You can also have the GenAI listening into conversations and actually monitoring what's happening and providing a greater depth of understanding of how the agent interacted, how the customer interacted. So you're going to see a greater focus of GenAI solutions focusing in on how the customer was dealt with, so that really your net promoter score is as positive as possible. And obviously at the back end, you will correlate that to other factors and get an understanding of what is the best journey to make sure your net promoter score remains at the maximum. So I think GenAI will be used primarily at the customer front end. And as the learnings occur on this, then it'll move back into the back end office operations, back end network operations, and then beyond.